It is Wednesday, the 15th of 2016, and here's what's going on my desk right now. Well, let's start over here because it requires the least amount of explanation. I've got, as you can see on the left and the right there, two Powermacs. The one on the desk is the 7300-180, and the one on the floor is the 7500-100. Both of these have been upgraded quite a bit now, especially the 7300. And what I ended up doing is kind of sad for me, is taking parts out of the 7500, putting them in the 73, because the 7500 is dead. I've put probably 50 bucks into trying to fix it. I've put many hours into trying to fix it, and it just does not work anymore. The board is faulty, and I haven't been able to fix it. So what I ended up doing, and I'm going to try to show you right now, is I have too much crap going on my desk. I'm going to put the camera down. I ended up taking parts from the 7500, putting them in the 7300. And here is what I did so far. This already had a USB card in it, but it's still in there. I transferred over, and this is rather interesting to me. I'm not sure whether it's a limitation of this particular system or what, but I put in the 333 megahertz. This is a Interex Mach Speed G3 processor upgrade card, which is 333 megahertz as opposed to the 300 megahertz that I put back in there. And this thing does not show up as 333 in this system. It only shows up as 300. And I've done a PRAM reset. I've done just about everything I can think of. So I'm not really sure why this is only showing up as 300, but not a big deal. I fully populated all the RAM slots as well as the VRAM slots, so it has now 4 megabytes of VRAM, 305 megabytes or some weird number of RAM, which is the most that I'm able to put in it. I've got 3 64s, 2 32s, and 3 16s or something like that. Maybe it's 2 16s, I don't really remember. But it's got 304 megabytes of RAM, something close to that. One thing I noticed that kind of upsets me is that I'm not going to be able to do or transfer over the video in and video out ports, because although there is the artifact on the case for where those ports would go, which I thought was kind of cool, there's no header on the board. This board is lacking the ability to even have me plug anything in to there. So, no video, but you know what, that's fine. I'm not too torn up about that. Also, I think this is, I don't remember what this is. It's not an ultra-wide SCSI or something. It's something else, but it doesn't have that port either. And I think the only other interesting thing that I noticed between these two machines is that, as you can see, all the power and data connections on the board, with the exception of one, are all coming off the side of the board, whereas these are all pointing upwards. I just thought that was kind of interesting. So that's how this thing is going to be. I don't expect to... Oh, come on. I broke this little tab off. It's when you open it, it's supposed to kind of catch in this hole right here and keep it propped up. But unfortunately I broke it, but that also makes it very difficult to close. Oh my gosh. There it goes. So the only other upgrade I plan on doing to this thing in the near future is finding some way to get an IDE hard drive in here. This has been quite the endeavor on the internet for me. I have not been able to find anything that looks like it's even remotely going to work for any reasonable price. The IDE to SCSI adapters, or, well, SCSI to IDE adapters that I've been able to find are upwards of 150 bucks, and it's not worth it at all. And, yeah, it's been difficult. So I'm going to stick with this hard drive because I do believe it's good. I'm going to try to get data off of this one from the 7500, which is definitely bad. I mean, at one point it was clicking. So that is a story with those two. It's kind of a side project I'm doing because I don't know. I don't know. But I'm probably going to end up selling the 7500. As much as I love to keep it around, I can't find a board for a good price. So, I don't know. I think I'm just going to get rid of it. But I will take pictures and stuff as I do with all the Macs before I sell them. Add them to my picture collection, which sounds so lame, but I promise you it's pretty cool. The NAS, well, we'll come back to the NAS, because that'll take up a good portion of the video, and if you're actually interested, you'll stick around. If not, then I won't bore you as much. And of course the camera cuts out, because that's what this camera does. Anyway, this is a 2008 MacBook Pro that I'm working on for somebody. It would be my brother-in-law if I was married. So, he's got two MacBooks. Well, this one is a MacBook. This is a 2009 MacBook, a white one. This is a 2008 Pro. And I had to pull the old hard drive out of this one. It was an odd size. It was 200 gigs. 200 gig SATA drive. I don't know. Oh, it's on the dock right now. And that was totally bad. Completely ruined. So I swapped it out for a 160. And it was running 10.5.8 or .6. And I'm putting 10.6.8 on it. So that'll be nice. This one is kind of the side computer that he doesn't use that much. So I'm not going to bother putting Lion on it or anything newer. It just doesn't need it and it won't run very well because it only has 2 gigs of RAM. And I don't have anything else to put in there. But one interesting thing, as I started to film this just a couple seconds ago and then the camera cut out, I moved the screen. And the screen is all flaky. And I didn't notice that before. And now I'm very pissed off because I don't know if that was the fault of mine or what the situation is. But that really sucks because I don't want to take it apart again. And I don't think it was any of my fault. I think it just happened. But I will let him know, and you know what? If it was my fault, I'll make it better somehow. I'll either fix it for him or I don't know. But this thing's beat up anyway. I can tell him it's his fault. I wouldn't do that. So there's that. The 2009 MacBook is cleaned and ready to go. I'm not going to bother showing you because I can assume that you've all either seen a 2009 or can look it up if you want to. What else? What else? Well, the NAS. The freaking NAS. I tell ya, I have put so much money and so much effort into this thing that it's unreal. The total cost of this thing has been about maybe $700. And that's counting the $500 for drives and the rest of it for hardware. Which is fine. I expected to spend that much because I wanted good drives. But what I didn't, actually I spent another $100 on top of that. But as I may have mentioned before, I bought an LSI RAID card, one that was out of an IBM server, which was branded internally, like in the firmware, by IBM. What this means is that if you want to flash the card, or, for example, add the advanced feature key, you need to be running the LSI version of the firmware. I did not know that. So what I did was I had this in the system. It was working just fine. I could boot into the web BIOS, configure everything that I wanted to. I put the advanced feature key in, started the machine up, could no longer get into the web BIOS. Cue ohfuck.gif. This presented a huge problem for me because for the next, next couple weeks, and probably about 15 hours of work later, I was not able to get this thing to boot into the web BIOS ever again. And it all came full circle, but I'll get there eventually. So, it was in here. Couldn't get it to work. I tried flashing it. It failed flashing multiple times. And even got to a point where it said, if the flash fails, then your card is dead. Or that's what somebody said online. Luckily, it wasn't dead. I just had to bring it into another machine. So I tried, well, it's in the closet right now, but another machine That did not work. I got a similar issue, a little bit different. In the end, I ended up taking it over to my gaming PC, throwing it in there, flashing it. Worked wonderfully. I was so freaking happy. And then what did I do? I booted into the web BIOS on the gaming machine. What did it do? It worked. So then, back goes the card, into here, and what doesn't it do? Does not boot into the web BIOS. It now has a different firmware on it than it did before when it wasn't booting. It's the LSI firmware, the stock firmware. It still doesn't work. And after all that, I did a very quick Google search and found that it is not compatible with my chipset. It is not compatible. So, that freaking sucks, and it's very confusing still, because I don't understand why it worked in the first place. But many people have said it doesn't work on particular chipsets, and mine is one of the ones that it doesn't work on. So, what I did was, I ended up making, and I'll show you so that you have something to look at. I ended up installing a very cheap RAID card in there that I've had that you can't see, but it's a 2-port. I think it's only a SATA 2 capable, really cheap thing to do a RAID 1. I used it for many years prior and it's worked just fine. I'm not really concerned about losing anything. So I did that. It's taken a long time to load the disk information. And with the 3 3TB drives, what I did was I made a RAID 1 with 2 of them, and I left the third one just alone. So my plan is, anything that's really important will go on the 3TB RAID, because that's managed by the motherboard, which I would deem more reliable than the card that I put in there. Here is the 2TB RAID, RAID 1. So I'll put important but slightly less important things on there. And then on the 3TB single drive, I'm just going to use that as a dumping ground and testing drive for just whatever I feel like. Just because it's going to be slightly faster to write to, because it's not writing to 2 drives, and I don't know, whatever. That's just what I want to do with it, so that's what I'm going to do with it. So yes, this has proved to be an incredible, massive pain in the ass, and in the end I ended up just saying screw it, and did fake RAID with 2 of the drives. Which is not the right thing to do, but screw it. You know what? I need the NAS. It's been offline and not working for about a month and a half, and that is way too long. Way, way, way too long. So this thing is going up on eBay. It is 100%, I promise you, functional. It works completely. I've tested it in the gaming PC with some other drives, and it works. It works very well. And it's flashed with the LSI firmware, so now it's not an IBM card. So I might be able to sell it for more, maybe. I don't know. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to put this thing back in its little cubby hole and finally get it off my freaking desk. And this should finish in a couple minutes. I just got to run some updates on it because it's currently going to be at 10.6.4, I think. Get those out of the way. I'll do a little bit of work on these tonight. Well, right now and then tonight. And then I'm going to leave for work. So that is it for this one. It's been an incredibly long-winded video. I hope that some people enjoy these. They are some of my most viewed videos, which is nice. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.